Hey, morning, folks. I want to clarify my video from last night. And if you did not watch that video yet, the Relic Delta update 4, I kind of implore you to either go watch that video first or to just ignore this one and, walk away. Because it definitely is a commentary on the things that I said and why I said them and how I said them. Um, Last night, a lot of people reached out to me. Honestly, less people overall have watched the video, but more people hit me up on Discord overall and in the comments overall. And I think there were a lot of people really confused. And I think people were really confused because I had been really pushing for this context post and saying, "Hey CG, you need to release this context. Hey CG, you really need to release this context. Hey CG, help us to understand what Relic Delta is and why Relic Delta is and how Relic Delta is and where Relic Delta is and all the who, what, when, whys, and wheres." And they were all going, "Hey man, I actually feel a little bit better. You feel a little bit worse. What's up?" Right? And I started to realize nothing I said was wrong in the video. I stand by the things that I said, but I started to realize that maybe I didn't clarify my position well enough. And the mental state and being tired maybe confused my point overall. And I realized maybe 2 hours after posting that I was probably going to have to make a video in the morning to kind of explain myself. The post that CG released yesterday, the developers context post about the future of the game, I fully support. I did read through it. I It does make sense. I do understand it, and I see why Relic Delta needs to be part of the game. Are there better solutions? I mean, maybe. I don't know because I have had less than 24 hours to really think about that. But the reality is that Relic Delta has been in production and been in development for a long time now. So even if I came up with this amazing solution tomorrow, it's highly unlikely that it would ever see the light of the game since you've got one solution just about to be ready and one solution that isn't that wouldn't make sense to change trajectory. So I do fully support the post, and it does help me to understand what's going on. And I do want to say that I appreciate the communication that CG gave to us with that post. I wish that it had been done sooner. I wish that it was given to players right off of the bat, especially when the original post was, hey, here's this new update. The content creators are going to explain it to you, and good luck to them because they don't have all the information yet either. But I do appreciate them doing the right thing in the end. And I do really hope that we get this level of communication in the future. Um, all of the creators have made polls, and in some creator circles, the tides have shifted a little bit more towards agreeing with Relic Delta in some form. Um, in my own community, a lot of the polling has been rather similar to our first polling. Um, the one thing that I did see people say going back to the post itself was that they really did feel like being communicated with was a solid response. So why do I feel worse, right? I think, and having thought on it a lot more, I think that the reason that I feel a little bit worse now isn't about the post itself. It's about the long term ramifications versus the short term ramifications. And I believe that Relic Delta is the the solution that they feel is necessary to deal with the long-term ramifications of the health of the game. And when we talk about the long-term ramifications of the health of the game, I think that we're talking about a 12-month plus timeline. And if we want the game to survive past that 12-month timeline, um, that something needs to be done instead of stacking new system on top of new system on top of new system on top of new system, right? Because that's how you get some kind of like crazy Frankenstein monster worth of systems, and you end up with more spaghetti code than we started with. I think that my problem with the post that we received yesterday and currently with the beta in the context of the things that are public and known about, um, is that there are also a lot of short term ramifications. And I don't think that CG is taking those short term ramifications as seriously as I feel that they should be. Because I do think that Relic Delta can be released alongside all of the accommodations to make sure that the short term ramifications that will exist because of Relic Delta um, are settled, right? There are a lot of questions that we as community, as a community, and as beta testers are asking CG for. Things like, hey, how is this going to affect feat acquisition in Conquest? Or how are newer game accounts who are being funneled into these specific ROI points, right? These return on investment points like assault battles, how are those players going to be affected by these changes and the changes that are potentially and likely coming to assault battles? Um, all of these time saving mechanisms that we're talking about in the context of PvE, where are they at the really big time sink days within territory battles and within conquest, when we're also looking to release a new game mode? Are you, selling those to us with higher relics than the ones that we already have, so that we have to pay in order to get those time saving mechanics? Whereas in the past, things would be set to simmable if they were no longer relevant. Um, I think that these are the questions that need to be asked right now. And I think that these are the questions that CG needs to be hounded with. What about the players in PvP who have built their rosters very specifically to beat rosters that are higher than them? Would they have built their account differently if Relic Delta existed a year ago? Would they have focused on the off meta counters that didn't need as high of relics versus going for Galactic Legend acquisition? Are those players going to be significantly negatively affected in the short term? Are they going to lose the next 8 to 9 matches and get knocked down for leagues right back to where they were, which maybe doesn't feel like a big deal if they start winning 50-50 again, but is that going to negatively impact their mental health space? And when I say mental health space, I mean within the context of the game, not within the context of like the full world. But is it going to affect their mental health space with, consistently losing and feeling maybe jaded by changes that they feel more significantly negatively affected by? um, at the top end, when we talk about TW guilds versus non TW guilds, and I understand that droid brain acquisition is potentially going to be easier. We haven't seen those systems in the scavenger yet, so we don't know. Um, but our guild's going to start seeing giant walls of Relic 9 teams that they are. It's already insurmountable. That is going to dishearten them more. I think that these questions are things that players are going to be asking themselves over the next month, over the next 3 months, and over the next 6 months. And I think that a lot of these questions are questions that have answers to them, but we're not getting answers to them. And I think that it's okay for them to say, hey, that's a great point. We don't have an answer, but this is something we're going to seriously take into account and we're going to talk about and make sure that we get an answer to you. I think that's fine. But I think right now, in the context of the beta, we're testing game systems that, presumably are going to come to the game in the near future. They have to be in the game in the next 3.5 months as a bare minimum, just because of the timeline they've given us with the Stranger's Conquest. Um, we're testing all of these things, but we're not testing any of these short-term ramification answers. And what I had said in my statement, and I had read that yesterday, was that I am in the camp of players that is least likely to be affected by this in a negative way. So I feel protected from Relic Delta. Um, but I want to look at this problem through the lens of the majority of players, not just the minority of players who are most likely to engage in additional content in the game, like videos and Reddit posts and Discord and Substack and all of those things. I want to think about the player who is just playing the game and sitting on the toilet for 20 minutes a day, which, by the way, you shouldn't do. I want to think about the player who, does fully engage in the game, but maybe has only been playing for a year or two. And I want to think about protecting the investment of those players. And I want to think about the new player coming in. Um, I know that there are fancy things and shinies in this post, things like, free gearing and free relicking up to certain points. And we don't have answers on those things. We only have exactly what's in there. And it's kind of pushed under the rug of, hey, we're going to dangle this in front of you. But we're not going to give you much information on it. You're just going to have to deal with Relic Delta in the meantime while we also work on those things for later. And I think that that is where my problem with this post is coming from, is that I feel like while overall there is a lot of upside with Relic Delta for the long term, there are a lot of short term problems that can be solved that aren't being taken as seriously as I would like them to be taken. Right. So I just want you guys to consider that when we, go through the comments and people are confused by my position and my understanding of things, because that is my position. I do. It's a complicated position where I am happy about a lot of things, but I'm also disheartened by a lot of things. And I feel like the next 3 to 6 months are going to be bumpy 3 to 6 months unless these things are talked about more. But I do want to stress, and I did say this in yesterday's video, I don't think anybody should quit the game right away. I do think that people need to be less alarmist. And I do think that when this does come to the game, people should at least give it a chance. And I am going to very strongly stand by my suggestion of giving players time to adjust to Relic Delta and giving players time to say, okay, Relic Delta 1 is active. Let's see how this feels. All right, great. Relic 2 is active. Okay, great. Let's see how this feels. And giving people that space to build their rosters while Relic Delta exists around them. Because if Relic Delta is about the long term health of the game and not just protecting the investments of the players who are most likely to spend the largest amount of money, then just the fact that Relic Delta exists and is slowly going to be turned on over time should be enough. So I hope that this clarifies my position. I hope that people understand what I was trying to say and maybe not saying as eloquently as I normally would when I posted that video yesterday. Um, but I will again say that I do stand by everything that I said. I just wanted to make what I was saying a little bit more clear. With that said, peace out. Have a great rest of your day.